Hello, third graders. Today's video is going to be unusually short because Howard took up all my time this morning. He was sleeping underneath one of the hay feeders and refused to get up. And now he's being a stinker. All right. Chapter 7, The Boggart in the Wardrobe. Malfoy didn't reappear in class until late on Thursday morning, when the Slytherins and the Gryffindors were halfway through double potions. He swaggered into the dungeon, his right arm covered in bandages and bound up in a sling, acting, in Harry's opinion, as though he was the heroic survivor of some dreadful battle. Really, remember, he just got slashed up by the hippogriffs with their talons. "How is it, Draco?" simpered Pansy Parkinson. "Does it hurt much?" "Yeah," said Draco, putting on a brave sort of grimace, but Harry saw him wink at Crabbe and Goyle when Pansy had looked away. Settle down," said Snape idly. Harry and Ron scowled at each other. Snape wouldn't have said settle down if they'd walked in late. He'd have given them detention, but Malfoy had always been able to get away with anything in Snape's classes. Snape was head of Slytherin House. And he generally favored his own students before all others. They were making a new potion today, a shrinking solution. Malfoy set up his cauldron right next to Harry and Ron so that they were preparing their ingredients on the same table. "Sir," Malfoy called, "Sir, I need help cutting up these daisy roots." "Because of my arm." "Weasley, cut up Malfoy's roots for him," said Snape without looking up. Ron went brick red. "There's nothing wrong with your arm," he hissed at Malfoy. Malfoy smirked across the table. "Weasley, you heard Professor Snape. Cut up those roots." Ron seized his knife, pulled Malfoy's roots towards him, and began to chop them roughly, so they were all different sizes. "Professor," drawled Malfoy, "Weasley's mutilating my roots, sir." Snape approached their table, stared down his hooked nose at the roots, and then gave Ron an unpleasant smile beneath his long, greasy hair. "Change roots with Malfoy, Weasley." "But, sir!" Ron had spent the last quarter of an hour carefully shredding his own roots into exact equal pieces. "Now," said Snape in his most dangerous voice. Ron shoved his own beautifully cut roots across the table at Malfoy, then took up the knife again. And, sir, I'll need the shrivel fig skinned," said Malfoy, his voice full of malicious laughter. "Potter, you can skin Malfoy's shrivel fig," said Snape, giving Harry the look of loathing he always reserved just for him. "Cut it out. You're being worse than a Norwegian Ridgeback dragon." Harry took Malfoy's shrivel fig as Ron set about trying to repair the damage to the roots he had to use. Harry skinned the shrivel fig as fast as he could and flung it back across the table at Malfoy without speaking. Malfoy was smirking more broadly than ever. "Seen your pal Hagrid lately?" he asked them quietly. "None of your business," said Ron jerkily, without looking up. "I'm afraid he won't be a teacher much longer," said Malfoy, in a tone of mock sorrow. "Father's not very happy about my injury." "Keep talking, Malfoy, and I'll give you a real injury," snarled Ron. "He's complained to the school governors and to the Ministry of Magic. Father's got a lot of influence, you know. And a lasting injury like this..." He gave a huge fake sigh. "Who knows if my arm will ever be the same." "So that's why you're putting all this on?" said Harry, accidentally beheading a dead caterpillar because his hand was shaking in anger. "To try and get Hagrid sacked?" "Well," said Malfoy, lowering his voice to a whisper, "partly, Potter. But there are other benefits, too. Weasley, slice my caterpillars for me." A few cauldrons away, Neville was in trouble. Right? Yeah, Neville was in trouble. Neville regularly went to pieces in potions lessons. It was his worst subject, and his greatest fear of Professor Snape made things 10 times worse. His potion, which was supposed to be a bright acid green, had turned orange, Longbottom, said Snape, ladling some up and allowing it to splash into the cauldron so that everyone could see. "Orange. Tell me, boy, does anything penetrate that thick skull of yours? Didn't you hear me say quite clearly that only one rat's spleen was needed? Didn't I state plainly that a dash of leech juice would suffice? What do I have to do to make you understand, Longbottom? Neville was pink and trembling. He looked as though he was on the verge of tears. Please, sir, said Hermione, please, I could help Neville put it right. I don't remember asking you to show off, Miss Granger, said Snape coldly, and Hermione went as pink as Neville. Longbottom, at the end of this lesson, we will feed a few drops of this potion to your toad and see what happens. Perhaps it will encourage you to do it properly. Oh, I know you think that I'm going to feed that to you, but I'm not, I promise. I would never let him. Snape moved away, leaving Neville breathless with fear for Trevor. Help me, he moaned to Hermione. Hey, Harry, said Seamus Finnegan, leaning over to borrow Harry's brass scales. Have you heard? The Daily Prophet this morning? They reckon Sirius Black has been sighted. Where? Said Harry and Ron quickly. On the other side of the table, Malfoy looked up, listening closely. Not too far from here, said Seamus, who looked excited. It was a muggle who saw him. Of course, she didn't really understand. The muggles think he's just an ordinary criminal, don't they? So she called the telephone hotline, but by the time the Ministry of Magic got there, he was gone. Not too far from here, Ron repeated, looking significantly at Harry. He turned around and saw Malfoy watching closely. What, Malfoy? Do you need something else skinned for you? But Malfoy's eyes were shining malevolently, and they were fixed on Harry. He leaned across the table. Thinking of trying to catch Black single-handed, Potter? Yeah, right, said Harry offhandedly. Malfoy's thin smile was curving into a mean smile. Of course, if it was me, he said quietly, I'd have done something before now. I wouldn't be staying in school like a good boy. I'd be out there looking for him. What are you talking about, Malfoy? Said Ron roughly. Don't you know, Potter? Breathed Malfoy, his pale eyes narrowed. Know what? Malfoy let out a sneering laugh. Maybe you'd rather not risk your neck, he said. All right, you need to get off my lap. You're heavy and chubby, and you're being a problem. Say thank you for reading with us, Howard. Wow. Okay. Want to leave it to the Dementors to you, but if it was me, I'd want revenge. I'd want to hunt him down myself. What are you talking about? Said Harry angrily, but at that moment Snape called. You should have finished adding your ingredients by now. The potion needs to stew before it could be drunk. Clear away while it simmers, and then we'll test Longbottoms. Crabbe and Goyle laughed openly, watching Neville sweat as he stirred his potion feverishly. Hermione was muttering instructions to him out of the corner of her mouth so that Snape wouldn't see. Harry and Ron packed away their unused ingredients and went to wash their hands and ladles in the stone basin in the corner. What did Malfoy mean? Harry muttered to Ron as he stuck his hands under the icy jet that poured from a gargoyle's mouth. That's like the sink has a gargoyle's mouth and it shoots out water, and that's like the faucet. Yeah, Howard's not leaving my side. He just didn't like being on my lap. He's right down here. Yeah, we see you, Hal. Goats. Kids these days. Why would I want revenge on Black? He hasn't done anything to me yet. He's making it up, said Ron savagely. He's trying to make you do something stupid. This color just messed up. The end of the lesson in sight, Snape strode over to Neville, who was cowering by his cauldron. Everyone gather round, said Snape, his black eyes glittering, and watch what happens to Longbottom's toad. If he has managed to produce a shrinking solution, it will shrink into a tadpole. If, as I don't doubt, he has done it wrong, his toad is likely to be poisoned. The Gryffindors watched fearfully. The Slytherins looked excited. Snape picked up Trevor the Toad in his left hand and dipped a small spoon into Neville's potion, which was now green. He trickled a few drops down Trevor's throat. There was a moment of hushed silence in which Trevor gulped. Then there was a small pop. And Trevor the Tadpole was wriggling in Snape's palm. The Gryffindors burst into applause. Snape, looking sour, pulled a small bottle from his pocket out of his robe, poured a few drops onto Trevor, and he reappeared suddenly, fully grown. 5 points from Gryffindor, said Snape, which wiped the smiles from everyone's face. I told you not to help him, Miss Granger. Class dismissed. And that is the end of my video for today. Something happened to my camera. I don't know. Anyway, it's all foggy. Have a great afternoon. I'm going to keep drinking coffee, keep working hard. I'm going to send your parents an email about a writing prompt with Google Docs. I figured that that's a way that you guys can still do those writing prompts that you like so much, and then you can send them to me, and I can critique them through comments. And it's not required, but it would be really fun if you have access to do it. Otherwise, keep watching the Harry Potter videos and watch out for my emails, and have a good rest of your afternoon. I miss you guys. Happy Wednesday.